Gaming NBS episode 192 coming to you Wednesday, May 23rd, 2018. Welcome to Gaming NBS podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Good to have everybody on board. How you doing, Sean, man?
Oh, man.
Weather's getting nice.
Yeah. Weather is nice. Not really today. Not that anybody would give a shit after hearing this 3 days later or 20 days
Yeah,
later.
today's rain and gloom, but
I had my house painted, and so, I mean, and we're not talking just like, hey, can you just do this wall and that wall? I mean, the entire freaking house with ceilings.
Inside, you're talking about inside house.
Inside the house. And the painter guy just left.
So you can smell the fumes. You are higher than a kite right now, aren't you?
Right. I've been huffing, people. Just say no to huffing. Don't be a huffer.
Don't.
No, it's no good. How can you game? All your brain cells will be dead.
Exactly. Don't do that shit,
No.
kids.
But it's living in disarray does something to people. Like I don't mind change. I like change. But living in freaking disarray, man.
Well,
having rooms and furniture piled up and all scattered everywhere.
See, I can handle my own clutter. Like if I'm like, look, my home office right now is just a wreck, right?
Sure.
I'm putting away winter stuff, moving this, moving that, getting my hunting gear rearranged. Oh my God, why do I still have this camo out here? I got to put this away. So I'm getting all this shit organized. And if I made the mess, I can find shit that's fine. But if I moved everything aside and I'm waiting for someone else to be done so I could go back to normal, that drives me bananas. It's like I'm letting someone else in my space, and they've wrecked it, or I've had to wreck it for them so they can do their thing. And I'm just waiting for them to get done. That drives you nuts.
So, like a D&D campaign, if you how do we tie this into an RPG? I have no idea.
I have no idea. All right, I'll tell you what. Let's just talk about announcements. We'll go from there. So, a couple quick ones. Evercon, my beloved little gaming convention in central Wisconsin, in January.
Evercon.
Yes. Our event submission is going to open up June 1st. Just sent the newsletter out to folks, get a little reminder. We'll be hitting the social media and so forth. If you can make it this year to Evercon, it would be great. For those of you who are considering such, it'll be January 4, 5, and 6 of 2019. It's goofy because you run a convention in January, people are like, oh my God, that's next year. Oh my God, it's forever away. But if you're anything like me and you've got to plan the damn thing, holy crap, the sooner you can get things going, the better. So if you're thinking about submitting events or anything like that, it'd be great. We open up on June 1st, we'll plug in people and so on, and then we'll have, badge pre-reg in September, and it'll be cool. It'll be fun. So hopefully folks can make it. And in other BrettCon-related news, I'm going to go to Queen City Conquest. I've mentioned this before in September. And should be fun. Should be a damn good time. So if you're going there, I hope to see you there. Sean, what have we learned about Gamehole Con?
Gamehole Con submissions for events are open. In addition to that, there are new lounges. Somebody had told me to tell somebody that. I believe it's our friend Edwin Nagy, if I'm not mistaken, that brought it up. Oh, man, I hope it was him. Those of you who are familiar with the show are already aware of the vendor GM lounge on the main floor of the show, and they are pleased to announce two cool new spots that will be open for Gamehole Con 2018. The first is the Fantasy Flight Lounge. This will be upstairs. Not that you guys have any, some of you have reference, but many of you do not. We'll be upstairs in the balcony area of the convention center. Fantasy Flight will be on hand running demos in that area. This will also be a very cool new open gaming space. So there will be tables of various heights and couches to relax on. There will also be a cash bar set up there for the entire show.
Holy cow.
Wow. Now see, GM Lounge, I don't know if I ever mentioned something to Alex, but it would have been on my list to say, like, dude, I like the GM Lounge. It's a nice token, but you gotta pimp that bitch out.
Yeah, no, he did. Apparently, they pimped that sucker out. That's
Yeah.
really cool. The Fantasy Flight guys running games there, that's awesome. I'll tell you, Alex and the team, I mean, we rave about them every year, but they keep adding cool stuff. It's just really, really neat. Good job. Very, very cool. All right, one more reason to run games, because Game Master, Lounge, hello, there you go. Very
Yeah.
cool.
But remember, there's no sex in the champagne room.
Yes, well, we're talking about a GM Lounge,
Oh,
not a
that's right.
champagne
It's
room.
not the champagne room.
Different problem.
Yeah. Or no sex in the green room. No champagne in the green room.
Something like that.
I don't know. I'm not privy to those things.
You're not up on your stripper lingo, I guess.
Well, is it? Yeah, that's right. It's stripper lingo. It's not high society lingo.
No, it is not.
See, I was mistaking it for like the roped off lounge.
Yeah,
Champagne, the green room. The green room's different. Green room's like our celebrity.
Yes.
That's different than the champagne room.
Yes.
Yeah. See.
Oh, wow. We're gonna let's go to random encounter. Let's do that.
Zip zaps. Motor
Zip
scooters.
zaps. You damn squares.
Oh, that's low. Let's turn that door up.
There we go.
Zip zaps.
So I'm gonna keep showing
Roll
that
your
country
own.
here. You read the first ones. Go for
Done
it.
with work. I don't know where my head's at. All
read
right.
it.
Howard emails us about character death. Hi, B and S. Many thanks for giving the character death topic such a great going over with some brilliant ideas. I should make it clear that I'm not some kind of homicidal maniac. Evil glint. Oh, really? That'll ruin that piece.
Nice.
I just want a proper balance around risk and reward. The player should understand that there are times when running away is a viable option. What tends to happen in our 5e games is that as a PC gets close to 0 hit points, the GM targets someone else rather than finishing them off. There's also some GM dice roll fudging going on behind the screen. I really like your idea of rolling in front of the screen so everything is out in the open. As you say, the key is to make it clear that there's going to be a different social contract. As the newbie GM in the group, I've offered to run one-shots in between campaigns or when folks are away, so I can use pre-gens, which may help a bit. Thinking about running D&D White Box since it'll be the 40th anniversary of my first ever game on May 15th. If the characters survive that, they can survive anything. Keep on choogling. Choogling?
Choogling. Yeah, it's a Howard thing.
Oh, okay.
That's nice, Howard. You know,
Howard must be. He must be from another country. I don't know that choogling.
Could be.
He
Well, I
might
tell you
be.
what, though, the one shots between campaigns with pre-gens, that sets the stage for, hey, this is Howard's game and this is how he runs it, right? So when Howard says, hey, I want to run a campaign, everyone goes, I got a taste for that. I know what that's like. The Earth Elemental will step on my head to make sure I'm dead. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to go, man. I like that. I
Rend.
like that a
Rend
lot.
is your friend.
Yes, Rend.
I need to get that on a shirt.
Rend is your friend.
Rend is your friend. Signed, evil GMs everywhere.
All right, what else have we got here?
Choogling.
Ooh, yes.
Hey, we're gonna keep on choogling. Your turn
Do
to
the best we can.
Your turn to choogle.
Thomas Hook emailed us in. It said the mashup from Chris Shore is an intriguing idea. I hope I got the name right.
Shorb.
I think you did.
Shorb.
Shorb.
Chris Shorb.
Shorb.
Not Chris Shore.
Not Shore.
That's
Shorb.
okay though. Shorb. Chris Shorb. That's
okay. If you've listened to us long enough, you know Brett. Even with my horrible last name, I butcher everybody else's. I'm terrible.
Brett
at this.
Blazinskowski Seversky.
That's not even close.
Nah, it's not.
Anyway, I feel that any I feel that any extended period of time that the gate would be open would lead to peoples of each plane starting to use a crossover tech and magic. So, quick recap. Chris Shorb had talked about interconnections, planar-wise, between a modern world setting and the fantasy sci-fi type stuff, where, hey, you know, we've got guns, they've got spells, back and forth. So, to continue. Thomas says, let's say NASA plugs a formula into a computer and breaks down, analyzes a spell, and shows that with a certain set of words spoken with the proper inflections, and uses a specific set of hand gestures, and then by adding a small amount of raw materials components, you get a fireball. Of course, this quickly opens the door to magic in a world as top scientists can now easily understand how to cast spells. At the same time, a wizard uses a comprehend language spell on a computer code. He realizes that it works like any other language. He can use this fantastic device to create a spell that works like an electromagnetic pulse, giving the mages in their world a good weapon against jets and other tech that comes through the gate. Both worlds would become influenced and changed by the new to them powers. Neither would get an edge, as neither world could pull together as a unified force. The Russians, heavy into oil research, locate an unprecedented oil reserve under the waters near the Beria Island and set up a drilling operations. Little-known Japanese scientist finds that the quote-unquote Lake of Steam is a perfect place to get his theories on geothermal power to work. The Japanese government throws everything they have into making a stronghold near that area. China finds that large tribes of orcs in the endless waste are more than happy to make a truce and act as guides and join forces with the invading army and trade for a new and powerful weapon called guns. A group of industrious and battle-hardened dwarfs launched an expedition to the Black Hills to investigate the large faces on Mount Rushmore. The Red Wizards of Thay find that the Bermuda Triangle is an incredible source of arcane power and immediately start building towers at each point of the triangle, using a new and endless well of magic to defend themselves from this world's best efforts to dislodge them. Wood Elves find the Amazon Basin a wonderful place to make a new home and go unnoticed by this world until it's too late to dislodge them. There'll be just too many political and financial factions on both sides of the gate trying to use this new phenomenon to grab power for themselves. I can see groups of heroes in both worlds rushing to shut the gate before too much damage was caused. Even with the basic imagination, adventure hooks would become endless. As gamers, we are way more than above the baseline on imagination. This doesn't even start to cover things like a dragon's breath melting a tank in its tracks, as the other tanks in the battalion rip through the dragon's hide with armor-piercing rounds. Even the toughest dragon scales just can't deflect. Jets easily outpace dragons in flight, but are unable to outmaneuver the elves and griffins as they cast lightning bolts, frying all the electronics in the F-16. Mind flayers are unable to press any advantage they hold over humans, as drones controlled from miles away pin them down with small weapons fire. Just came up with this in a few minutes. It took to type this email. Just think of the wonders that could play out with a little time and playtesting. As far as the rule system, I would use, it would also be a mashup, bleeding heavily into D&D. That's just me, and there are rules I'm most familiar with. I may play lots of systems, but I master none. With this said, I'm going to side with Brett in that this isn't what I would normally look for in a game. Great show. Keep your pencil sharp and table snacks handy. Thomas at Beholder's Horde. Thomas, that's some cool stuff. I mean, those are the types of things that...
Better spec that shit out, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go in, if you're going to take Chris Sharp's idea and go, what are you going to do with it? That right there, dude, that's like, wow. that's a lot of really good stuff, man. That is awesome.
There's an abstract for you.
There's definitely an abstract for you.
Send
That's
that
cool
over to
stuff.
Merle's.
When you say that is that type of thing he wrote down. Just add a little extra color to it. That thing you wrote down there, Thomas, that is, in my opinion, very much enough to start a campaign idea or to pitch a campaign idea or adventure ideas and stuff to your players. Some people like to read that stuff and so on. If that type of format, that's pretty good. Short, sweet, good stuff in there. Thanks, man.
Looking for good things to come from Thomas.
Absolutely. You ready?
I am ready.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go to the main topic. All right, Brett. What are we doing this week?
Well, I'll tell you what. We're outside of our realm on this one, so we're going to bring somebody in to help us get through this. Because what I want to talk about... Yes. Sean and I have talked about this before. High-level gameplay, overpowered, if you will, PCs, and craziness, high levels, and so on. And I actually had this conversation with some friends of mine around Amber Diceless, and like, oh my god, it's so powerful. How do you challenge anything of that power level? And I thought, who's a good dude to bring in on that? That would be Eloy Lasanta, because he knows this stuff. He knows part-time gods. He's got a second edition Kickstarter going right now for it, so we got Eloy to
yes, you do
bring some wisdom.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Like I've played God stuff like my entire gaming life. That I realize I've been doing now for like 25 years. Like, ugh.
Seriously? So you're like the high level play guy? Is that the thing?
I've been doing that for a long time. I actually started doing that. A lot of people already know this if they've listened to any podcast that I've been on, but like I started with Rifts. And when you play Rifts, it eventually gets to the point where you're gods. And then, of course, then they released the, what was it, Conversion Book 2, which was, here's how you play gods. And my group was all about that. We started making up gods, and then we started going on godly things and doing godly stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And, you know, it was definitely different than, like, we have to storm the castle. It was like, you know... the castle? Oh, the castle doesn't exist because I snapped my fingers. And, you know, it's like, because those people aren't actually a threat to me, but their god now is because I've pissed that person off.
Yeah, so you're no longer killing giant rats for experience points and worrying about carrion crawlers and bugbears. You're like way past that. You're actually onto the bugbears' gods being a problem.
Exactly.
Wow.
That actually, that's what ends up happening. I mean, the question of, like, how do you challenge a god? It's you challenge them with other gods is basically what you do. You know, so...
Now, Eloy, some people might have not heard your first soiree with us. So, just a brief overview of your resume to include even the new agenda, which I think some people even that have listened to us may not be aware of that venture of yours.
True. That's fairly new. That's only a few months old at this point. I think the last time I was on on here for Pip System, right?
Yep, Pip System.
Yeah. And Pip has been going strong. We have a couple of new books coming out for that this year, which should be fun. But yeah, so anyway, I'm Eloy. Hi, everybody. And I've been gaming for 25 years. See, that's the whole thing. Like, I already gave a whole bunch of personal stuff. You guys already know about me. But I've been publishing for about 10 years under my company, Third Eye Games, where I've made games like Apocalypse Prevention Inc., Ninja Crusade, Part-Time Gods, which is in its second edition right now on Kickstarter. I've done the Pip System, which includes, you know, Mermaid Adventures Infestation and the upcoming Kid's Guide to Monster Hunting, Sins of the Father and Amp Year 1. I think those are my other games. But, I mean, like, those are a ton of games that I've kind of created on my own. I've also gone out and I got to work on because I like to freelance. I like to lend my talents to certain things. So I've worked for some other companies as well. But one of the main things that I'm doing now, also in 2018 here, is I began a new company called New Agenda Publishing, which is now because you can never have too many publishing companies to manage, right?
I was going to say you don't. From what I know about you, Eloy, is that you don't shy away from work and large volumes of it. So this means that you weren't quite working an 80-hour week, and you just figured, hey, what the hell? Let's jack it up a notch.
Yeah, I was like on 60, so I was like, you know, let's do 80 now. But with New Agenda, what it is it's myself, Misha Bushjaeger, and Jerry Grayson, and the three of us have come together. We've created a New Agenda Publishing where we are trying to highlight new and creative voices from underrepresented communities. You know, we are three black game designers because it was really scary. Was around the tail end of 2017, I started trying to connect with other game designers of color, specifically black, and I think we were up to about 9 in total.
Wow.
When I couldn't find any more. And then of course it was like, and we all had our own companies, but then you look at the landscape of RPG publishing in general, and the majority of the companies are all owned by, you know, a particular, you know, type of person, usually older white men, which is, you know, nothing bad about that, but that's just the facts. So, so basically we're here to try and change the landscape a little bit. We're going to shake things up and have some fun. So, and the quick start for our first game should actually be out later this month, which I'm very excited about. Because we've spent months now here designing a new system and coming up with the different things, and it's going to be sci-fi, so it was coming up with the universe and coming up with tons of different and weird and interesting alien species and stuff. So it's amazing fun. So, but maybe I'll come back on and I'll talk more about New Agenda later. Cause
yeah, we're going to have to, man, because that is, I mean, I knew a little bit about it, but what you just said there, I mean, quite frankly, that's awesome stuff. I mean, I look at a friend of Sean and I, Mark Hunt. He's a game guy from down in Illinois area, African-American gentleman, and he puts together some, what's that?
He's in Iowa.
Iowa, damn, I keep thinking he's in Illinois. Anyway, he's a big Gangbusters guy. I think he actually has the rights to publish Gangbusters. He's been slowly but surely working on different things, and that dude is such a hoot, and every time I run into him at like a GaryCon or something, it is I'll talk about different things, what's going on, and this, that, and the other thing, and it's amazing to me because when you just look around and everything, you're used to a very specific look to everything.
Yeah.
And me being who I am, I'm a white middle class guy. I think, wow, that's cool. Oh, Eloy, he's doing some really good stuff. And then I don't always think about the fact that, hey, there's groups of people that don't have somebody similar to them to help them pick them up and get them into something because they don't know how to break into a thing. And
exactly.
I think what you're doing is awesome, man. So congrats.
Thank you.
Really cool.
And I've been that guy. I've been like the black guy at a convention before. Like, so it's like, it's one of those things. Like, really, I'm trying to push this out here so that more people can come and enjoy what we do. That's basically the end of it. Is like we want more people to come in and play, and that only happens by that. It's only going to happen on purpose. It's not going to happen accidentally or just say, oh hey, what's this over here? It's like, no, that's not how it's going to be. We're going to have to put ourselves in everybody's faces, and that's just how it's going to work. But the cool thing about New Agenda is that because now it's a team, because with Third Eye Games it's always just been me, but with New Agenda I actually have a team. So while I'm doing the Kickstarter now for Part-Time Gods 2nd Edition, they're working on the other stuff that I don't need to be touching right now. I already did my part for the Quick Start, so I handed it off to them, and they're going to finish it off, and that's called delegation, which is amazing.
That's the only way I survive my day job, dude. If you don't have people
exactly.
you can trust around you, you're going to collapse. So good on you for
exactly.
doing that.
But honestly, in the end, it's that gives me time still that I can still focus on Third Eye Games, and Third Eye Games is it's still it's still my baby, and honestly it's growing even more now too because I've been bringing on more people. I have a project manager now, I have a design manager, a marketing manager, I have people who I've been bringing in to help develop books, and I have new editors that I've been working with. So just so many people that I've been bringing into Third Eye that have been coming in and really enhancing the company, which, like, if you look at my current Kickstarter and you compare it to, one of my ones before this one, like, it just looks way more professional. It just looks more, crisp. Like, it's just
sharp.
way better.
It is sharp, man. I was checking it out earlier today. It's a sharp looking Kickstarter. So.
Todd did an amazing job with it, and he put his foot in it, and he did a really good job with making it look really awesome. So, and of course, like, the whole point of it is to make it look awesome so that people will come in and try it out. And the game itself is really cool. So we should probably get to talking about God stuff. So, oh my gosh, I can ramble forever.
If you haven't listened to us talk to Eloy like last time for Pip System, this is exactly what happens.
You guys don't stop me. That's the problem.
Well, it's cool stuff, man. It's cool to listen to. All right, so let's talk. Let's go. Part-Time Gods of Fate. So. Part-Time Gods of Fate, different thing. Part-Time Gods, back to Third Eye Games.
And this is 2nd edition. Well, I mean, of Fate is still, that was done by Encoded, but it's the same game, same theme, same concepts, just different implementation with the rules, which I really liked, which is why I let them do it, because they pitched it to me, and I was just like, that's a really cool way to do that. Let's do that. I like that. So
with the 2nd edition now. Is there let me first. I'll ask this first, and then we'll get into the nits and answers.
Then we'll get into the actual topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So the lure of playing gods. We were talking. We talk about, hey, Eloy's been playing godlike characters forever. This is a love of his. What's the attraction? See, one of the things I like is I tend to like low level, kind of that gritty, watching every copper piece kind of play style.
Right.
And when I see this, I have to. It's harder for me to get amped up sometimes to play the uber power, to play the big, to play gods and so forth. Yeah. And it's goofy because I used to play vampire in White Wolf, so I mean, there's pretty much blood drinking gods on planet Earth.
I mean, essentially, yeah.
So what's the lure for you? I mean, when you looked at making Part-Time Gods, even back at the time, what was the lure for you to say, hey, what would be really cool is to play gods?
Well, it's always been that sort of thing. Like, I've played a lot of games, again, where I've played gods, and there's always certain things that come with playing gods. It always comes with having worshipers and having to deal with that relationship dynamic of you and people who worship you. That's always been really fun. Then there's always there's the whole thing with having tons of power so you can do lots of things. And of course, me and other people tend to disagree sometimes on what power is. For me, a powerful character is somebody who can do lots of things, not necessarily cause lots of damage.
Okay.
It's like, because if all you do is hit something and it dies, I hit that thing and it died, and then I hit that thing and it died. How interesting is that?
Yeah,
like,
that's the one-trick pony, right? All you can do is punch things in the face. Yay!
Right. So that's not the part that attracts me to godhood. And playing those types of games. It's always about the dynamics of you and other gods, with you and worshippers, with you and mortals. And that's always what has, fueled me whenever I play. Because I played Scion, I've played, what was it, let me see, I played Scions, and I played, obviously, Rifts, and it's the gods of the modern gods of today,
Exalted?
or something like that. Yeah.
Exalted?
What's that?
Exalted?
Well, Exalted too, which they're not technically gods, but I mean they might as well be. So I mean there are a lot of games out there where you can play godlike level stuff, and that's actually why Part-Time Gods. The reason why it is the way that it is because there are a lot of games out there where you can already play that, hey, I'm that guy who's out there and I'm just causing as much damage and doing whatever I want because I'm a god and, screw your rules of reality. And Part-Time Gods ended up becoming a little bit more kind of like what you said you like, which is the, where it's almost street level, except that you're also a god. It's like, so you're a god and you have actually huge control over pieces of the universe, and you can do so many things. By all rights, you are a very powerful being, and yet, if you get snuck up on by the wrong person, they can just shoot you and you're dead. It's like, it's that sort of thing that it kind of mixes the fantastic and the mundane, together into a game, which is again why I made the game, because it's different than what else is out there, because I wouldn't make a game that was the same as somebody else's game, because I would just play that game. Why waste my time making a game that exists?
Exactly. So when you were playing when you're playing gods, instead of having if you think that the Munchkin, the old school version, I remember being in high school, having that character who was unstoppable, like obscene numbers of hit points, crazy-ass armor class, just deal tons of damage. Instead of just being that ultimate tank fireball chucker guy, the idea now is like, hey, I'm going to make this person, and she's going to have a bevy of powers and skills and different things. She's in control of a certain attitude, aptitude, whatever, of the world or universe even. But we still have to deal with ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, that type of thing. So that's kind of the idea, right?
That's exactly what Part-Time Gods is. That's exactly what Part-Time Gods is. To a T. Is it's what I've always said is the tagline for the game has kind of always been that being a god doesn't pay the rent. It's like you can be the god of the ocean, but your wife is still calling you and saying come home for dinner. So it doesn't being a god doesn't help you in your marital issues that you might be having.
Damn, I was hoping something would. No, I'm kidding. So when we're talking about, let me think about this. So big earth-shaking, bust up the universe, like god on god, throwdown action is the first thing that I think of. Hey, God, I'm going to play a god, so I'm going to have a smackdown with Zeus, and hey, I'm going to go hand to hand with somebody else. But when you take the personal components of it, I like that idea of having those big things, but yet still having to deal with something at home, if you will, or on the street, or where you grew up, or your followers. How do you often? I see it anyway, Eloy, as saying, hey, I can have this larger earth-shaking plot line going on, but I want to make sure that there's enough of the smash cut back to, hey, the homeless people who are worshiping you, Chicago still need love, care, feeding, and attention, and then possibly merging all that stuff where your opponents are finding out those small, soft, squishy, lovey things that you have and trying to put the screws to you so they can go take those things away from you. That's what I'm thinking of as you're talking. Is that kind of how you're rolling as well?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? Is that you need to have the earth shaking, the huge things that you're dealing with. And usually what I end up doing is I have several storylines going on anytime that I run a game of Part-Time Gods. So I make sure that everybody has some sort of storyline that is personal to them. Whether it's mortal or divine. It could be that, you're having a rivalry with another god and you're doing that thing over here. Or it could be marital issues for one, and it could be, something else entirely for another. Like the last game that I ran, one was tracking down some sort of weird monster serial killer. One was working with another goddess to possibly, team up against another god and take their territory together. And in the third guy, his brother got arrested and he needed to find ways to make enough money to bail him out. It's like those three, they're all gods, but those three storylines were the ones that were important to those characters. And then after I have those established, then I usually introduce the big one that now these are the things you need to deal with now as a team. This is the thing that's affecting all of you. And so when you have, and that's what Part-Time Gods is like built on, is that you have several things happening all at once, and it creates the need to make choices. But also one of the things that we have is even outside of the storylines, the way that Part-Time Gods 2nd Edition is actually structured is that you have what's called free time. You have a certain amount of free time, your character does. And every scene you have to pay a free time to participate in that next scene. And if you don't have any free time, then some part of your responsibilities in the world comes calling.
Okay. So you've got, instead of having to have the GM fiat, like, hey, I need to put the brakes on that Eloy guy. Hey, I got to get Sean in here. You actually have a mechanism that is forcing...
It's built into the game,
okay,
that your mortal life will come into it, or your worshippers will come into it, or somebody will come asking you for your time. And then, of course, there's also the whole thing of sometimes you have to go to work, because it's actually one of the main ways that you have money in the game. So if you just run around spending all of your money, you eventually have to go to work. And it sucks, but that's life.
Well, I like that. The way you started, the way you explained it, was very, having everybody has their small individual thing. Then there's like a big deal that everybody has to deal with, and by every person having their own goals and objectives, and those storylines are happening 3, 4, 5, however many gamers are going, and then wham, the GM lays down the big one, and now they got to decide: I have to be involved in the big one. Do I let my other priorities slack? Do I let that other god potentially take over? Do I piss off my wife, or oh my god, my boyfriend's getting mad at me?
Yeah.
Or hey,
well, and that was the thing, is like I got asked, like, what's the benefit of even having a pantheon? Why couldn't I just be a god by myself? And I'm like, well, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. There's delegation.
Yes.
There's delegation of stuff. I actually had a whole and I've told the story a couple of other times, but I had a group. This was the very first playtest that I ran. And I had 4 players in it, and one, it was like, okay, cool, like, we've tracked down the guy, we just need to go, and actually, we have to talk this person into giving us his location. And it was just like, cool, well, everybody give me a free time to go and do that if that's what you're gonna go do. And one person's like, I don't have any free time. And I'm like, cool, well, he was privileged, so I'm like, your family says that there's a charity event that you have to attend tonight instead. So you have to go get ready for that, and you have to go to that. He's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go to that since the rest of them can take care of that. And then one of the other ones was like, well, actually, I have to go to work because I have no money. And then the third character was like, well, I'm getting called by my worshippers. So it was like there was this very important task that needed to get done, but 3 out of the 4 players had other stuff that their characters had to do in that moment.
That's awesome.
And it actually left the worst person to go and deal with that. So it was so funny because then it's just like I handled like the side scenes for the other characters really quickly, and then we all just had a fun time watching the 4th character fumble through the entire scene, and it was just an amazing kind of experience. to have. And that was actually where I was like, okay, cool. This playtest was successful. This definitely works. But it's definitely not. It's not that kind of game for, somebody who's like, if I'm not in the scene, if I'm not playing every second of the game, then I'm gonna get mad about it or whatever. Like, it's definitely for those types of groups where you enjoy seeing other people's stories progress. You know what I mean? It's not about killing something. It's about like, oh, last scene that he had with his wife, they had a big fight. So let's see if it's different this time. It's like, I'm interested in that sort of thing, and I love playing with people who are interested in that sort of thing. But that's the whole thing about Part-Time Gods, is always having multiple things happening. So you have your own storyline, you have the main storyline, and then you have all these other things that are now popping in as well. And you're like, I don't know which one to go after, and they all have their own repercussions if you don't handle them.
Nice.
So
you still got the am I right? You still have the opportunity if you want to have the badass throwdown. You're like, look, she's coming for you, and it's just going to be a brawl. There's still the opportunity for the big fight, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, there's actually so many fights in this sort of game. I actually had one of my favorites was that I had the main storyline be that there was like a necromancer who was like summoning zombies and all kinds of stuff, and they like cornered him in like the middle of town, and then I was just like, well, he reanimates the skeleton of like a dinosaur, and it starts like just going through the entire town, and there was like a nice huge like massive fight in like the middle of the city with this necromancer and all his minions and this giant dinosaur, and then you have those moments where you can just go crazy with it. I had a god who was the god of celebration, and the god of celebration says, can I turn the dragon into confetti? And I said, I mean, you can. That's going to be a really tough roll. I mean, do you want to try it? He's like, I have to try it. So he literally like spent everything he could to get as many dice as he could. He borrowed dice from other people. He spent all of his free time, and he just did everything he could. And he just rolled like a mountain of dice, and he was successful. And it was just like, then I got to describe like the dinosaur's coming and it's about to beat you, and it just like chomps down, and at the moment right before his teeth would connect with your skull, you snap your fingers and the entire town is covered in confetti. And it was just like, it was one of those amazing moments in the game, because everybody just went, whoa! Because he got like the exact number of successes that he needed to get. So...
what's cool, what I'm hearing you say, which is really cool to me, and I did this a lot, whenever I run Amber, which I haven't done it for a while, but even when I was running Vampire, one of the things that happens with fights is that because... just to have an old-fashioned slobber knocker, to beat the orc and take his money, it's so blasé.
Exactly.
And every fight in these types of games are exactly what you're describing. The fight is a story. Sean and I have tried to talk about this on the show before, but using the fight to push the story along, using the fight as a showpiece for, hey, because of this, these other things happen. Mm-hmm. Because I did this. Some games have mechanics for, hey, if I do this, do you owe me a boon? If I do that, we have, I spend luck or willpower, whatever. But no matter how the mechanics are going in the background, I think the cool piece for me that makes a high-powered game like this, when we're talking about gods on the table, is those fights. They're much more interesting because the outcome, whatever happens, even if you don't die, even back in Vampire, it's harder as fucking hell to kill a vampire, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of it, if you got your ass beat and you had to run away, if that god gets just thrown down, just totally his punk ass beat, and he's got to run, and then he's like, I got to get back at her. She's the one that did this to me. She, blah, blah, blah. It builds this story vibe, which I think is really cool. And not that you can't have it in other games, but I think it's critical to these god-powered games, because if you don't have that, the fights are so freaking boring.
Especially, too, the fact that, like, you have such a power level. Like, it's that sort of thing. It's like, if you're, like, just attacked by just, like, some dude, like, you're gonna win that fight, because they're just some dude. It's like, that's just how that happens. But, like, when you're going up against... I like to say it kind of like... Did anybody here watch, like, the Power Rangers?
Yeah, like, I have younger kids, so I have seen
like
it.
The old Power Rangers. I used to watch it when I was in school and everything, and it was really fun. And I remember that I loved it when the Green Ranger showed up, but when he was the bad guy, because every episode it would be, here's a monster. Well, we're Power Rangers, we're designed to defeat monsters, so I defeated your monster. You know, and like it was the moment that it was another Ranger. Oh, this one Ranger is whooping the other 5 Rangers' butts. Like, wait a minute, did the Green Ranger just win? Like that's the whole thing. Like, and that's the difference between a God level game and a regular game. It's because you can't just throw just whatever at a God level character. You have to throw God level things at them. And
if the players are grooving on it, and you have a street level person, actual honest to God mortal, comes up and tries to smack the god of peace or the god of whatever, right? Mm-hmm. He's the god of, help or whatever he happens to be, and the player has a bad day and just aces that dude. What
Mm-hmm.
happens to his followers, right? What happens to all of that stuff? All the repercussions of you flexing your god muscle in the wrong direction, just out of spite or anger.
Exactly. I mean, and that's kind of all about kind of the balance of power. Like, I get asked all the time, like in Part-Time Gods, why are gods hidden? Why aren't just everybody just running around being gods, and why isn't the whole world completely different than it is? And I'm like, there's a lot of reasons for that. They're all like very set in like the setting. But there's, I mean, a few of the reasons are like, anytime you use your power, it's like a beacon for the bad, nasty things to come and try to destroy your life. So it's like, it's cool if you're like throwing around small little miracles here and there just to keep your worshippers happy. But the moment you do some massive turn a giant dragon into confetti thing, all that does is attract more trouble. So it's that sort of thing too. It's like there has to be, like you said, like the repercussions for what you do. Like there has to be that in a God game, because if there are no repercussions, then it's basically just you saying I'm running around and I'm just doing whatever I want. And how fun is that? Like there has to be consequences to what you do for it to be fun.
So that ties me into this other question I was going to hit you with, was from a player character. A lot of what we're talking about here is Game Master specific, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think so if you're going to play this kind of game, Eloy, when someone's going to sit down and they're going to play gods, if they're playing Part-Time Gods, they're playing Scion or any game where they're going to be a god, goddess, whatever. When that player sits down, how does she get in the right mindset? Is there a I want to say, make sure you understand the setting, make sure this, make sure that, but
yeah.
You're doing this more often than I am, so, and you're the guest, so I'm going to ask you anyway. So,
I mean, that stuff is important to, obviously, like, know what game you're playing and stuff like that. I mean, like, at a con, it's not that necessary. You can kind of gloss over the majority of, like, the setting, but, like, if you're really sitting down and you're like, I'm going to play this game, and I'm going to give it my shot here, and I'm going to try to get into the right mindset. A lot of the time, for me, like, I do a lot of, like, I'll watch movies or TV shows, or I'll read a book that reminds me of the game that I'm about to play. And we give a lot of, like, different references in media and whatnot for Part-Time Gods, for instance. But for me, it's all about kind of playing the character and not playing the god. And I think that's kind of the big thing here. And that's what Part-Time Gods a lot of the time focuses on. Because, like, if you are the god of celebration, that's awesome that you're the god of celebration, but, like, is that who your character is? Well, no, actually, he was, like, a baker, if I recall that character. Like, he's a baker, and he had a boyfriend, and, like, a bunch of, he had, like, he was a club goer and stuff like that. Like, that was his thing. It wasn't just that he was the god of celebration. He also is a person who is the celebration. And I think that's even a big thing. Even if you look at myth, like, if you look at Hades, like, well, let's not do Hades. Let's do, because Hades is the wrong one. That's not the one that I meant to say. The god of war. I'm trying to think of what his name was. Ares.
Ares. Okay.
So Mars too.
Yep.
It depends on how you want to call him. So Ares. But like Ares was like, cool, I'm the god of war, and I run around and I start wars, and I like to manipulate humans and all that stuff. But like the story of Ares is that he's married to another god, and
Yes.
he's a jealous god, and he likes to pick fights with the other gods, and he likes to show his power and stuff like that's who he is, not what he does. You know what I mean? And that's the big thing about I think whenever you're playing any character, and this is why whenever I try to play D&D, like, people don't like me, because I'm not just the level 5 elf fighter. Like, I give myself a personality, and, you know, I'm Britta on the Community episode where they were playing D&D, you know, with the gnome. Like, you know, the gnome comes over and gives you a drink. Well, I'm gonna have a conversation with the gnome, and they're like, no, just go to the fight, just go to the thing so you can fight the thing. It's like, no, did you hear about the gnome oppression? You know, it's like
That's awesome.
You know, I'm that guy. So, you know,
I'll tell you that's a lot more interesting. I mean, you know, you think about it, and you're right. I mean, especially if you're thinking gods, and instead of just thinking the high-end power thing, I think Hephaestus, the one god of the forge, was, I always remember the story of being this kind of this ugly, overly muscle-bound guy that just does this stuff, and he happened to be married to or obsessed with this, like, the goddess of beauty type of thing. So it's very classic, you know, ugly, pretty type of thing.
Right.
But, you know, even Loki isn't really a god per se. He's an adopted son of a giant. It's just, you know, he's not just the god of trickery and the guy who likes to, you know, glue Thor's boots to the floor because he thinks it's cute. There's much more going on. And even Thor, to go back to the Norse, I mean, yeah, he's a god of thunder, bad temper, blah, blah, blah. But, crying out loud, you know, he gets really mad at his brother Loki, but he's still his brother, and he can't quite crush his skull, you know?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
There's all those pieces of it, because if you just took it out when total munchkin, well, Thor just fucking kills Loki, crushed, dead.
Exactly.
What fun is that story, right?
Right. I mean, and, like, even in my games that I've played, like I said, I've played lots of god games, like, because you're so powerful and you can do so many things, most of the fun is in the social interaction and the dynamics between you and, like I said, your worshippers, your other gods, monsters. Like, monsters don't always have to be the bad guy. You could make alliances, and, like, a lot of that stuff is the fun part. Like, because, yeah, I could just smack you and you die, but let's try this a different way. You know, let's try this. I mean, I can roll like a mountain of dice and just kill you, I guess. I guess that would be fun for someone. You know, and it's weird too, because that's me from a player and from a GM perspective. Like, I'm always looking for the way that I can do something that's different, which is why I don't play those characters. I don't design my characters for, you know, optimal performance in combat. That's just not what I do. Usually I'm the one who's like, oh, you guys are going to fight? Well, I'm going to stand over here and, I don't know, do something else, or I'll I usually don't even make characters that, like, are buffers or anything. I'm not even going to be any assistance in a fight. You know,
I am of no use here. I'm just telling you right now.
Like, I'm the god of cats, which is like means I can run away really well. Like, nice. Like, you know, like, sure, other gods of cats can pounce and have claws and stuff like that. Yeah, that's not. I don't do that stuff. That's the other god of cats.
Well, if you've ever played Amber, you've been to a convention where people are playing, even the old school vampire LARPs and stuff, they were all basically designed to be talkie LARPs and not so much smacking people with foam weapons LARPs. And that type of uber-powered character play, and every time I played Amber, the fun is not the one guy who is the best strength, beating the ever-living tar out of everybody else. The fun is that guy verbally sparring with the person he wants to beat up but can't because it's his sister. You know,
right?
That's the interesting part, the tension, that piece that happens, and that's what you get out of good movies and books and stuff. If every time everybody just murdered everyone, it'd be Game of Thrones. It wouldn't be all that fun.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and that's actually part of, like, that's, like, in the design of Part-Time Gods, is the ability to basically inflict that tension or those conflicts on yourself. And, like, the players get into it, like, as soon as, like, you can watch the table, because they're like, I mean, I see these things, and they want to treat them like regular drawbacks. Like, it says here, like, you know, oh, I'm scared of the dark. Okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll just avoid dark places. And I'm like, no, that's not how they work in this game. In this game, you say, hey, it's dark, and my character can't handle it. I don't tell you that. You tell me that. I'm you know, you as the player are saying, I am going to activate this bad thing for my character. And what that does is it generates dice for the rest of the group and stuff, which is fun because you're basically taking on something bad, but you're helping the table by way of dice. But as soon as that like clicks for most players, like they're like, oh, I'm going to use these all the time now then, and I'm just going to have terrible things just happen everywhere. It's like,
I love it.
And it's so fun because that's the fun part, anyway.
Well, that's playing right to the god trope, right? I mean, at some point, Thor's going to lose his hammer. Zeus is going to have something bad happen to him.
Exactly.
Hecate's going to have a problem. And it's the thing that they're afraid of or worried about or nervous about is going to happen to them. Hey, guess what happened to Achilles? It was poke in the heel. There you go. It's going to happen.
Exactly. It has to happen. It's part of the story.
Yes.
So that's so whenever you're making your characters, for instance, in Part-Time Gods, is for you make 4 major selections, and for every selection you make, you get a good thing and you get a bad thing attached to that. So, for instance, if you're saying like your character is a caregiver type of personality, well, you can get like bonuses to your medicine, or you can get like the ability to encourage people, stuff like that. But like the bad things are like, sometimes you come off as condescending and like everything, and that causes conflicts. And like literally, like I've had that come up in a game and it just enhances the game. It doesn't hurt the game. Bad things are great in these types of games because, again, you're at the power level where you can just like, if you and another god fought, it would just like, it would do terrible things to both of you. So a lot of the time it amounts to arguments. So, but I had that in a game once where they were just talking and, they were just coming up with plans, and there was just one character who just, like, every time one person had a plan, like, he was playing it up. He was literally just like, he would have a counter thing to everything that guy said, and then he threw some dice into the middle of the table and said, yeah, I'm activating my curse. So, like, so just like, he's saying, like, I am definitely meaning to be coming off condescending to the other player. And then there was this whole big fight, and it was amazing, at the table, because the social dynamics is what really matters.
Very cool.
But I'm a role player too. Like, I like to roll dice, so there's a lot of dice flying in Part-Time Gods, but it's not always just for smacking people to kill them. We try to have lots of different ways to handle our issues in the game. So
the other thing I'll tell you, what I'm hearing is that from the game master perspective, and it brings me back to my Vampire games, and what you're saying here is that when you have this level of power, one of the important things that happens is those flaws, those weaknesses, those bad things that these characters have, even if the player forgets the mechanic, even if the player doesn't remember what's necessarily on their sheet, as the game master, it's really important for you to take the note, remember the thing, make a cheat sheet, whatever it is you got to do, and kind of go down that list as your own preparation, if you will. At least I would, or I do, is saying, hey, these are the characters in the game. You know what? Sean's greed problem hasn't really cropped up.
Exactly.
Not for a while. I better hit Sean with some greed situations. Hey, Ange is showing up. We better really poke on this problem. Hey, Eloy's going to be there. Let's make sure. Because if you're not familiar with that stuff, in the heat of whatever it is, and I tend to, we bag on players sometimes just to be fun, but generally speaking, in the heat of things, players don't purposely forget the bad stuff. But if you know what's going on, you can inject that stuff in there. Say, hey, don't forget, if you want to add some dice to this thing, or you want to make this thing happen, your character's greedy. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. And then bang.
I had one where there's a character who has the one of his curses is that every so often he's just really naive and he's overly trusting. So, like, I started an entire campaign with that because I had he had some terrible thing happen to one of his bonds. Basically, the bonds are like the people, places, and groups and stuff that keep you centered as a person and keeps you from kind of going insane. So I had his bond like get in like an accident, and then I had him approached by the God of Deals. And the God of Deals was just like, I have an issue that I need taken care of, and if you do it, then, I'll go ahead and I can save your bond, and I can make sure that she doesn't die. And, like, literally, the player was like, well, what kind of thing, and like, what are we talking, and all that stuff. And I just picked up a die and I threw it into the middle of the table, and I'm like, you immediately shake his hand and say yes, because you care that much about it, and you're overly trusting. And the guy was like, oh yeah, you're right, I am. Oh, that's so awesome. It's just like, because again, it's like, God games are not the games to play if you're scared of dying. Because honestly, it's not going to come up all that often anyway, so why play your character that way? Because that's honestly what ends up happening a lot in other role-playing games. And this is not even to say anything bad about any particular role-playing game, but a lot of the time players are like, the game rewards if you mitigate the amount of damage or harm that your character takes. So you end up with like, cool, we have to go into the dungeon. All right, everybody, let's spend an hour of our session planning everything out and exactly what we'll do if this happens and who's going to be in what position and like, all that stuff. Make sure we have all the gear, make sure we have all the stuff, that we're completely prepared, because that sort of thing is rewarded in that kind of system. And in the systems that I design, especially as of the last few years, where I've kind of grown into loving complications and bad things happening a lot more, I invite those things in now, and it becomes the fun part of the game at that point. So, and that's again like part of what Part-Time Gods is like built upon, is there's equally good and bad, there's equally fantastic and mundane. Like, you are always playing with two sides of the game and the setting and the themes and whatnot. There's never just a thing. It's not fantasy, go kill the monster. It's, well, there's the monster, but then I also have this other thing, and, if I kill the monster, is that even a good thing? Is that just going to bring more monsters, or could I maybe do an alliance with it, and maybe doing an alliance with it pisses off the other gods? It's just like, there's it always has to be something that's going on that makes it interesting. It's not just, let me just roll a bunch of dice until I roll enough successes and this thing dies, and then we all pat ourselves on the back for killing an imaginary creature.
One of the things you said there about not being afraid to die, I think an interesting piece of this is that as an expectation from a player's perspective, and even as a game master, is to say, look, y'all are playing gods, huge, high power level things. You're going to take, in D&D parlance, hundreds of points of damage a hit. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. And that's okay, because it's freaking cool, man. Yeah. You just got whacked hard by, the god of the forge just pounded you down. And you get to stand back up, look him in the eye, and say, what? That's cool, right?
Right.
And it may well be that final insult your god of jokesters laid on the god of the forge is the one that he did pound you to the ground and you're dead. But wow, what a way to go out,
Exactly. Also, I mean, in most of these god games, like, even if you die, it's temporary. And then it's like, it's like, so he did smash your skull into the ground and you died. And then, like, oh, just wait until I come back a couple of days later. He's going to have words from me. It's like, that's how it is in Part-Time Gods, at least. You have like a couple of days to like cool down, and then you come back to life. Nice. But in other games like Scion, I think, if I recall, in Scion, like, you can't die unless like another god kills you. Like if a human comes up and just, beats you with a bat, you're not going to die. Like, you just won't, and there's other games where that happens. Like, Rift's always had the MDC SDC thing. So, like, as a god, literally, you could flick a normal person and they would just die because you would do that much damage.
Mega damage.
It's mega damage.
It's Rift, man.
Which, a lot of people had issues with that. I actually kind of dug the SDC MDC thing, but, that's just, that's just me. Like, it basically puts it on two different tiers, and it lets you know what you're dealing with. So, and it's kind of like that, right? There's another game, and I can't think of it, but, like, there's, like, two phases of being able to play, and that's actually how we're going to end up, kind of addressing it in Part-Time Gods because we're right now in the middle of trying to get funded the second book. Like, the first book is already funded. We're already over like 300 and something % of making sure that it gets funded, that it got funded, and it's done. So right now we're working towards a big stretch goal so that we can actually fund the first book that will be coming out after the core book, which will be the companion book, which is going to have what happens when you have shed your mortal, life and now you really are just a god. Like, what does that do to you? And it's going to be a lot of kind of what we're talking about here. It's going to be, you're on a whole other level. You don't have to deal with, mortals as much, but now you have to deal with, like, the community of other greater gods and everything that they're doing. It's just, it doesn't remove your problems becoming a god. And I think that's what a lot of gamers believe should happen. Like, I'm a god, I shouldn't have to worry about anything. It's just like, no, you just have different stuff to worry about. Like, it's like, now it's like, I don't have to worry about, that guy down the street is going to mug me. I have to now worry about, the god of war trying to usurp power from the entire pantheon and kill us all. So, or the god of war causing a war with a pantheon that I don't really want to fight. I have friends over there, but now I'm forced to because I have alliances with these people. It's like, it becomes that sort of game as opposed to, the minutia of everyday life and having to pay bills and stuff like that. So, anyway.
No, I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I vaguely remember reading the Immortals box set way back in the day of the Red Box Expert, for the Frank Mensner stuff, and trying to wrap my head around, I'm a god, how come I have any problems? This doesn't make any sense. As you get older as a gamer and you start to put it together and just more experienced, you understand that, bigger power equals just bigger damn problems,
Exactly.
No matter what you have, the stress just goes, it's logarithmically bad.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if you just take, like, Superman, for instance, right? Like, Superman started off as, saving people in Smallville. Like, that was his job. He was Superboy, I guess, at that point, Clark Kent. And he would save, like, just people who were stuck under a tree or, whatever. Then he went to Metropolis and he started, fighting against supervillains. And then he discovered his ship, and then he found Kryptonian technology. So then it was just him, and now not only is he super powerful, but now he's surrounded with all this technology, and then he basically becomes able to single-handedly stop invasions. He creates, like, a space station, and, it's like it keeps growing and growing, but he never stopped having to deal with stuff. He just didn't have to deal with people stuck under trees anymore. It was now alien invasions.
They're planets stuck under other planets now. It just got bigger. It just got bigger.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. Oh man, I tell you, now I want to play like a super high powered game again. I haven't played it in a while. Sean, I've been monopolizing our guest here. You got anything for him, man?
No, we've covered quite a bit. So
no, Sean doesn't like to talk to me. Apparently,
that's not true. That is not true.
But no, like, that's the thing about part-time gods, right? Because again, like, I actually really enjoy playing those higher level, I can do whatever I want. But what part-time gods does is it mixes the two elements. It mixes the I'm super powerful and I can do a whole lot of things. Like, trust me, there's a lot of people who are like, oh man, why can't the characters in part-time gods be more powerful? And I'm like, well, I mean, if you design your character, it's your fault that it doesn't do what you want it to do. Like, you should be, like, from the get-go, you should be able to do the things that you've decided that you want your character to be able to do. Whatever you feel power is, you can probably do it. And there's so many ways to do, like, earth-changing, crazy things, even from the start. But it all has to do with, like, what you're the god of. And that's usually, like, a limitation that people don't like. Because they're like, well, I'm just a god, I should just be able to do whatever I want. And I'm like, well, no, you have to fall under whatever you're the god of. If you're the god of oceans, you're not going to go burn down that building. Like, no. Like,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
not,
you could flood it.
You could, yeah, of course you could cause a citywide flood. Exactly. You would basically use summon, and you would summon the ocean to you. So you could totally do that. But, it's that sort of thing. Like, it honestly just takes time for people to kind of wrap their heads around the idea of being a god, but also having limitations. But the limitations are what makes the game fun. Like, I had a whole group of playtesters who, gave back their playtest feedback, and it was literally like, I think you should change the entire premise of the game, and it should just be, gods running around and doing whatever they want. And I'm like, cool, man. you should go play another game. Is basically, that's my opinion. This
is not for you.
This game wasn't for you. It's cool. Like, I know that it's not going to be something that appeals to everybody, because a lot of the time a lot of people play RPGs as escapism. I don't do that. I play them for fun. I don't play them to escape my life. My life is actually really good. So, not to brag or anything, but, my life is pretty awesome. So I don't play to escape from something. I play to enhance my life. I play to have fun with my friends and, do that sort of thing. So I don't mind playing a game where there are some real world complications. Like I was talking about free time earlier. There are players who will come into this game and they'll say, well, I don't want to have to deal with those responsibilities. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's the game, though. It's like, I don't want to, though. Well, I mean, you can just ignore them, and then they'll all just go away. And then you don't have them anymore. Because you can do that. Like, that's the thing in the game, too, and maybe I didn't mention that earlier, is that you have the choice. Presenting these things is not a reason to smack the players. It's offering up hard choices. So do you continue on with the adventure? Do you go fight the big bad guy? Do you do your personal adventure, or do you go and deal with your family and friends? So it's your choice of what you're going to do. It's all what you want to do. But if you don't do one of those things, the other ones are going to suffer. It's like, the hard choices. And that's what I love games for. That's why, like, if anybody has actually played Apocalypse Prevention Inc., and I know some people have, at least 10.
Well, I'm going to say an easy baker's dozen. We got to have 13 people.
There you go. So, and if you've played that game, like, if you read any of the published adventures, they're all gray area adventures. It's always like, well, now you've discovered what this big thing is happening. Do you do this thing, and it would be good for the company, but actually is really amoral? Or do you save the people, but actually saving them is going to make them come back later and probably be enemies? It's just like everything is a gray area and an API, because those are the kinds of games I like. So,
Well, I've always thought as a game designer, it behooves you to make the games that you want to play. I know John Wick has said that, and a few other people
definitely
I've listened to have. I mean, because if you're trying to make a game that's going to be for people you don't know, for play styles that you neither enjoy nor really understand, you're going to fail.
Yes.
And what I hear about this is, you're taking the right pieces when we're playing gods like this, in the way that you're doing it, frankly, is the way I would like to do it. And I think that's really cool. One, because, hey, somebody likes what I like. But two, exactly. I think it goes beyond what I would call very simplistic, I'm a god, therefore I can beat the crap out of whatever I want. It takes the pieces of all that mythology and everything behind the gods and then makes it a thing. Like, look, if you're the strongest, you're the smartest, you're the wisest, you're the best wizard, you're the best, the best healer, whatever it is, you must act within that idiom, right? I mean,
mm-hmm.
Orcus doesn't do whatever Orcus wants. He acts within his Prince of the Undeadness. And the same thing with Baphomet. And when you pick apart the D&D gods, and it's the same way all across. You're acting within your purview, and therein lies the challenge, not only the ups, but the downs as well, and the different parameters that you're stuck within, because, hey, guess what? You're God of Fire, man, and no water for you. That's just how it goes.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, too. Like, there's a character in First Edition who didn't survive to Second, but she was actually one of my favorite characters, because she was a doctor who was the goddess of fire. So I would have people who would be like, the bad guy's here, I summon up a giant tor and a flame and I fire it at him. And I go, you can't, no, you took an oath, you're not going to do harm to people.
It's like, crap,
it's like,
oath, God damn it.
It's like, man, now I have to figure out some sort of other way, because, that character wouldn't do that. And that's also part of it is, just because you're the strongest, just because you're like the strongest god doesn't mean like that any god likes you. Just because you are the smartest god doesn't make you a good husband. It's like just because you're the most powerful wizard doesn't make you good with money. So it's like there's always that's what Part-Time Gods does. It's like you become this big epic thing, but like you suffer from very normal human drawbacks. It's because it's not like, again, like, it's not like the drawbacks in other games where it's just like, well, you're missing limbs and you have giant scars everywhere and you have tons of enemies. It's like, no, like, sometimes you get scared in the dark. Or sometimes, like, you get super stressed and just can't handle it anymore. You know, it's like, it's stuff like that. Or, you know, you don't like it if one of my favorites, Loner. That's a big one that a lot of people like. You know, sometimes you go off by yourself and you get into trouble. Like, that's a fun one too. But honestly, anyway, there's just so many different ways that you can have a fun character that doesn't require smacking another thing until it's dead. So anyway, and that's basically what you get out of a god level game. Is you get the ability to do almost anything you want. So if you can do anything you want, then those things don't really matter. Those things can almost be off screen. Like, oh, well, you're the god of death. Well, you heard that there was some necromancer who was summoning stuff. You're like, oh, I mean, I go and I just make them stop. So anyway, now, you know, now I'm going to go to the Allfather and I'm going to petition him for a separate domain of my own so that I can, you know, do other things and I can, you know, start planning and do, you know, it's like, that's, you know, because it's like the thing that you're the god of, like that, you're the god of that. Like, you can do whatever you want. Like,
yeah,
you got
to think big. if you're thinking too small, you got to pay attention to the small.
Exactly.
Your plans have got to be big.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Anyway, and again, I ramble, and that's
okay, man. No, hey, that's why you fit in with Sean and I. We just kind of roll it.
Well, I mean, that's why I fit in with you. Sean doesn't say anything. So.
I say everything in post, Eloy.
Oh no, he's gonna have so many things to say to me now in post.
He's going to slip all the conversations. Like, so Eloy, what do you think about this? I think that sucks. Oh boy, Eloy, that sounds terrible. Wow, yeah, suck it up. Oh my god. So
what you're saying, Eloy, is that every other game besides yours sucks. No, I wouldn't say that. I just edited to say you did. Anyway, sorry.
Awesome. No, it's cool, man.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for my game, but honestly, I'm excited for so many other games that are out there. There are just so many cool game designers, and they're all breaking new ground, because that's what it's about. It is about breaking ground and doing new things, and that is what I'm most excited about. And like for me, like Part-Time God 2nd Edition was an exercise in basically I remade the game from the ground up, and now it is in a form that I think is different than pretty much any game that is out there. And that's not like me tooting my own horn, but it was an experiment for me to create a game that is different, like mechanically. Like that whole free time thing that I was talking about, like basically the game inspires breaking up the party and having different scenes over here and over there, and it requires a different structure for the game, and like it's completely different than what is in other games. And that's been one of my really like favorite things, is just to see all of these different playtest groups, because I had several of them come back and go, oh my god, this was so fun, this worked really well, like we were scared at first because it was different, but it worked so well. And I love hearing that, because like it was a gamble for me to come out with a game that is Part-Time God 2nd Edition. Like it's a gamble to come out with this, because First Edition was a big hit. So there's always like the idea that it could come out and be a complete flop. But I'm loving the fact that people ended up loving
gods,
it.
Man, you gotta go big or go home. We're talking about gods here. Second edition, go. Do it. I assume you just sat there and said, man, I could either worry about this or I could break new ground, gain new followers.
Well, and I decided to do both, where I did the new ground and the new followers, and I also worried immensely about it. I'm not worried about it anymore, but I was at first.
Awesome. Well, Eloy, we know you've got stuff to do back at the ranch there. So thank you very, very much. Sean, you got anything you want to throw at him?
No. I'll talk to you later.
You will.
But no, seriously, guys, thanks for having me on. It's been amazing fun to come on here and flap my gums And obviously, again, there's the Kickstarter going on, so definitely, if you liked anything that I said or didn't like it and want to go, do a protest pledge. I don't know if that's a thing. Probably not, but I'll take your money even if you hate me. But honestly, like, if anything sounded good, like, go check it out. And there's a preview that you can get of the game that's got everything that you need in order to play, the game. So go check it out and see if it's your bag. And, my hope is that it is. So, and if you like it, come back the Kickstarter. There's a bunch, the book's going to be amazing, is all I can say.
Very cool.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Eloy. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. So, thanks to Eloy.
Yes.
For coming on the show and talking about gods.
Yep. Eloy's going to be at Queen City Conquest. So that'll be cool. I've never had a chance to talk to Eloy in person. So
I have.
There,
I have.
Yeah, I know you have.
I have. He and I, we're close.
You got me beat there.
We're close.
Yeah. It'll be cool to see him there, though. That'll be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And fun dude, too. I mean, obviously. It's hard to... You get Brett and Eloy talking, you might as well just pack a lunch. It's going to be a while before we're done.
Holy shit. He accused me of not wanting to talk to him. Like, between you and Brett.
You didn't bring enough heavy artillery to get into that one.
There's not enough room in this space.
All right, let's do die roll, man.
But yes, let's do die roll. All right, die roll, Brettster.
Yeah, I've got one. Ray Otis, listener friend of the show. He has his little zine, Plunder Grounds. He's got a Patreon, and he has Book of Plundered Pages #1 is free. So I've got a link in the show notes to that. If you're a Dungeon World fan, if that's the type of thing that trips your trigger, or if you just like really cool articles, really kick-ass zine type stuff, and you want to support a fellow gamer who's a really cool dude, go over and take a look at Ray Otis. That's the man, of course, who made up the Zip Zaps logo for Sean.
He did do the Zip Zaps logo.
Yes, he did.
We squared him away with some Zip Zaps gear.
Swag.
Yeah, swag.
Cool. Well, that was the only one I had. Sean, what have you got?
The 25 best board game mobile apps. So if you're a board gamer and you want to play with friends that aren't sitting right in front of you, some of these come in handy. They're pretty cool. You can find it on Vulture, the website. It's an article by Keith Law. So, yeah, I thought some of them were pretty cool. Like, I know a couple of friends of mine have played like Ticket to Ride, Lords of Waterdeep, and some
I didn't
other
know
ones.
Lords of Waterdeep was out there. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, man.
Damn, that's some cool stuff.
I've heard mixed reviews on the AI for Lords of Waterdeep because you can, I think, play the entire computer system.
Okay.
And so, I think it's pretty tough, but I don't know. Maybe they patched it and it's a little bit more
user-friendly.
A little better.
Non-user-murdery.
Probably a little better if you play with other players, which I don't know if you can with Lords of Waterdeep. But
nice.
Yeah.
Pandemic. Oh, wow. Cool. Awesome.
Second one, Devin, Mistress of Maps, Rue. So if you go to @DevinRue, DIVINRU on Twitter, she had done a rendition of the Greyhawk map. She got like 13,000 followers on Twitter. She's a big map person, cartographer, I guess, for lack of better words. And she just did an amazing job on the map of Greyhawk.
You look at this thing. I love Greyhawk, right?
It's like three-dimensional. Not three. I mean,
it is insanely good.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Devin, wow, that is just.
I think she's got a Patreon because I think at the top of the map, as she's scanning it, there's something at like Patreon at the top. I don't have a link to her Patreon, but yeah, I mean, she's got 13,000 followers. So somebody that's listening to this may be like, "Durr, how come you guys don't know about Devin Rue?"
Well, that's why we need listeners like them to tell us what the hell about cool people.
Right.
We can't follow all the cool people.
Yeah,
that is really slick, though. Damn, that is awesome.
Yep. So I thought that was good. And then the last one. If you didn't get it from our guest.
Oh, yeah, Part-Time Gods. Second edition.
Kickstarter,
people.
So this is a game, if you're not familiar with Part-Time Gods, that was launched 9 years ago. And if you're not familiar with Eloy, even just from this short conversation with him on Gods, He's got the PIP system. He's got a few other games. So second edition for Part-Time Gods, I mean, it's already funded.
Yeah,
so
it is.
So if you're wondering if it's going to fund and if he's going to deliver, he's got a good Kickstarter track record.
Well, I got it in on the PIP system when that came out, as
Me
did
too.
you and a few other people I know, and that was, boom, once it's done, you get your stuff and you move on.
Well, and this
Dude
isn't,
knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and this isn't even a new game, right? This
No.
is like he's doing a second edition, so it's probably some tweaks and some errata. Probably upgrading some of the artwork. I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out.
Oh, we did have one from Stefan Dragonspawn.
We
He
did.
posted this on Google on the G Pluses, and Stefan had a link to John Arcadian's TED Talk. So link in the show notes to that. We talked about this a while back. John Arcadian did a little TED Talk about gaming, of course, and John is not only a really kick-ass dude, but he's a hell of a speaker. So little link in the show notes. Take a look at that. Thought it'd be kind of cool to share.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. And that wraps up this week's show. Brett, are we gonna pitch another topic for next week that we're not gonna talk about?
Well, what happened? What happened is like, hey, let's see if we can get Eloy on. And I happened to say, hey, Eloy, you think you can get on? He's like, what are you doing this? When do you record next? Well, this Sunday. I can do that. Okay, we'll push this one out then, because we can talk about Cold Shadows almost any time, which is what we'll do next time. We'll talk about Cold Shadows.
Cold Shadows.
Yes, we gotta get Sean working some GM magic with his spycraft. So we gotta get him out there. We're gonna do this. See if we can prime the pump and get Sean all amped up and ready to run.
Yeah, I do want to run Cold Shadows, and it's probably something to put on for a Gamehole con and come up with a scenario. It'd be nice to probably run it before that, though, because I certainly would want to do
This will be one of those types of things where Sean knows he's read it. I have yet to read the rules, so I'm going to do that before next show. Go through it. We're just going to talk about. We have not played it. We're going to talk about it, and it's the same thing. Anytime when I first get a rule set, I read through it, go, wow, this looks really cool. You start talking to your buddies about it, so it's going to be that type of approach. What do you see? What do you think? What do you think would be cool? What are you concerned about? And so on. So that's our next topic.
Well, that's just fantastic, Brett.
You're damn straight it is. I'm feeling very confident.
Well, as well you should. All right. Well, I guess signing off for this episode, I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Mark, CMG Clover, Andy Hall, Corey Wynn, Graham Meinert, Joe Swick, Brett's biggest fan, Forrest Gary, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Jeppesen, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Palladian, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Wayne Humphrey, James Carpio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnston, Brandon Barnes, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, The Lost Sailor, Misdirected Mark Productions, Christopher Gray, Finolf, Merkel Froelich, Eileen Barnes, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Todd Crapper, Alexander Auerbach, Neil Benson, Chris Steele, Eric Hoffman, Kyle Winter, Curtis Takahashi, Mark Tasaka, Larry Hout, Ray Otis, Ron Bishop, Craig Huber, Xavier G, JV, John Hammersley, The Closet Gamer, John Steve, Jared Rasher, Mark Richmond, Thomas Hook, Blake Ryan, Chad Glayman, Sky, Roger Braslett, Evan Harrison Cass, Craig, Howard Bishop, Jim Fitzpatrick, Peter Skanes, Knights of the Night Crew, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Eli Kurtz, Patiri Tertianen, Edwin Nagy, Bruce Cunnington, Aaron Coleman, Tim Short, Stefan Dragonspawn, Aonigus, God, I keep screwing up his name, Rolford Guild, Gordon Cranford, Eric Salzweedel, Trezzy, George Sedgwick, Kevin Lovecraft, Matt Cyberlick, Jack Neller, Robert Nemeth, and Eric Bontz. For ways to support the show, head over to gamingandbs.com/support-us. Keep on choogling. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.